Hello, Kimball Creek partners and friends. We're pleased today to have with us Nicole Hancock, who's a state attorney here in Tacoma. You're lifelong Tacoman.
Yes.
What's the word? Tacomaite?
Tacomian. Yeah.
Tacomian?
I don't
Tacoma
know.
resident. Went to Gonzaga for your law degree. Now you're back. You do estate planning.
Yep.
What else do people need to know about your background?
Big Seahawks fan, big Gonzaga fan, but as far as estate planning, probate, I do real estate. I'm at Smith Alling down here on Dock Street in Tacoma. Firm's been around a long time, so we have a great reputation, kind of a general practice firm, so we do a lot of different things. We're all about, more of the relationships and helping families over decades, and that's what I really like to do with estate planning and into the trust administration or probate processes, that we're really helping from the parents to the children to the grandkids, and we're creating this legacy with them and being a part of that, and really just taking away like the obstacles and the stresses and the concerns, and it can be overwhelming, and I just love that I get to help families.
Yeah. You mentioned that before, that one of the things you really liked was that you felt like you were on the same side of the table as your clients, right? That you were their advocate really, and like maybe sometimes lawyers get a bad name, but you felt that in your position at least you could push back against that.
Yes, exactly, and be part of the solution, and rather than perceived as part of the problem.
Yeah.
So it's really rewarding work. Yeah.
Well, I reached out because we all the time get questions from you, our clients, about different legal things, and while we're not legal advisors, obviously a lot of what we do touches on legal issues. And so wanted to start with just some basic questions that our clients often have. One is, you have a lot of different solutions for when you're starting your estate plan to when you're refining it. Let's maybe start there of, if somebody wants to do a will, when should you go see an attorney about your will? When do you just write it on a piece of paper and stick it in the safe at home? When do you use an online source? I mean, I know you're thinking absolutely never, right?
Yes,
but
yes.
Are there ever scenarios where this is okay, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I understand that there's expenses related to meeting with an attorney and preparing an official will, and it's intimidating. I pride myself on trying to take that intimidation out, but really, you should try as much as possible to seek the assistance of an attorney, just because a will and your estate plan is a lot of circumstantial. Everybody is going to be different in their needs, their wishes, their wants for their families. Are we doing specific bequests? Are we doing legacy gifting? Are we tax planning? So yes, if you need, you have a very simple estate and you need it to be very affordable, I know there's Google and you can do those things, but most people need to have some level of guidance and advice, just like most people to go and do their investment portfolio themselves. Lawyers are the same thing. It's not something you should be doing yourself. You should be coming in and getting the proper advice to make sure that your wishes are properly fulfilled. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's that's kind of the first level, and then once you say, well, we have a will, what about a trust? And can you explain just really briefly what's the difference between having a will and having a trust?
So no matter what, an individual, if you're to the level that you're coming to an attorney saying, I want an estate plan done, you will always have a will. That's always the basic of, where do you want your things to go when you pass away? Who do you want to be in charge? That's the gist of a will. In very specific circumstances, there's going to be a need for a trust. There's zillion types of trusts. Most people refer, when they say a trust, like a living trust, like I want this to go into existence the day I come in and sign it, and then we're having beneficiaries named and it goes into place. But there's all sorts of things like special needs trusts, testamentary trusts, charitable trusts, and so it really needs to be kind of an assessment of the overall, what's your assets, what's your net worth, what are your concerns about your beneficiaries. We run into a lot that people have children that maybe aren't in a place to manage their money properly. Maybe there's addiction issues or things that we need to put restraints on them. We often will hear, I want a trust to avoid probate.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you now, that is not a reason in Washington to form a trust. There needs to be other, benefits that we see to it to do it.
So can you speak, you said not a reason in Washington to have a trust.
You caught
can,
that
can
key
you
word.
elaborate on that? Yeah.
Yeah, so we oftentimes will get clients that come in and say, well, I want to do this to avoid trust. I watched a segment on a national,
probate,
syndicated show, and they gave me advice to do this. We are very fortunate here in Washington. One thing we do have on our side in the court system is that probate process is actually very quick and efficient. So I'll get a personal representative to come in and sign the court documents to get them appointed. I electronically file them, and by the end of the day, they're appointed. Like
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah. Some jurisdictions in different states, California, for example, can be up to 60 to 90 days even to get that hearing. So it really can lag in time. The other thing that's huge is that the attorneys have to charge by the time they work on the file. So the probate process is not as expensive here as it can be in other states. Some states allow a percentage of the gross estate to be charged. So we're already, 10 steps ahead in that. So when you weigh the cost of doing a trust now, it's actually a lot more expensive. Mm-hmm. And so this idea of avoiding probate might not equal out here in the same sense of other states would.
And that kind of leads, to what you were saying before. If you meet with an attorney like yourself and say, hey, I think we need a will, you could probably see, you actually might be a good candidate for a trust, or a will is sufficient.
Yes, so we kind of go through a list of things to decide whether it's well worth spending the money now to create this. Mm-hmm. But I would say probably at the bottom of the list is this avoiding probate thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What about when it comes to power of attorneys, will, or medical directives, things like that? When should you have those?
So we get a lot of people coming in that focus on, I need a will. We have now such a long aging community. The most important documents, in my opinion, would be more of a durable general power of attorney and a medical power of attorney. Mm-hmm. Because, those become effective so that, when we're in need, that a person can step into our shoes and handle our day-to-day decision making, like paying bills, going to the bank, talking to the insurance companies, arranging care. And so if we don't have those documents appointing someone, then we will have to go to the court system and essentially open up a guardianship or a conservatorship process, which then puts your public life into the courts. Yeah. The courts is overseeing what's happening with your money. I don't know about you, but that makes me feel a little awkward, a little uncomfortable. And sometimes based on the circumstances, we have to appoint professionals to assist people. And so, you could suffer a major brain injury from a car accident, you're 45 years old, and now all of a sudden you can't handle your own affairs. So a lot of people think it's more of an elderly thing. Now it comes into use more often when we age really naturally, that we're just, harder of hearing, or we can't see as well, we don't drive anymore, and things just become a little more difficult. And so our adult child, or maybe a brother or sister, steps in and starts helping us, and that document would allow them to do that. And so
that's your power of attorney.
Yeah, that would be more, so that handles financial pieces of things.
And so you use the word durable.
Yes.
What do you mean by durable power of attorney versus just power of attorney?
So a durable means it's ongoing, that there's no expiration date. If it's going to be more of like a limited or a special, then it would have a defining moment in which it becomes, expires.
And that's just a power of attorney, that there's usually an expiration on
that. So most of the time you will want a durable, because there should be no expiration to it if the idea is that you're having someone help you. Mm-hmm. So, and then we will typically do a medical power of attorney, which is the individual's primary and an alternate person that you want making medical decisions for you when you're unable to arrange care and talk to doctors. HIPAA has made it very difficult to be able to access that information. And so it just, again, anything we can do to take not only obstacles away from you, but your loved ones as well, including your spouse. They're dealing with the trauma of you being ill. And, if there's things that are in the way of that, it can just really make it stressful.
So talking about that stress, when I think about, well, frankly, when I think about having to sit my wife down and say, hey, in the event that I'm, brain injured in a vegetable, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. those are uncomfortable conversations for a lot of people.
Very uncomfortable.
Do you have any tips for how to broach that?
Yeah, it's not really a date night subject.
Yeah, it's super helpful.
But it's really important that we do eventually have those type of conversations, more than just with the attorney, because that's the individual that's going to be making those decisions more than likely is our spouse or our adult children. So, they want to do right by you. And so having those tough conversations is really key. I mean, anything that you can do to help make it easier for your family, it's so beneficial. And really, until you're in that moment, you don't understand that importance. But really walking through, so one of the documents we would do is a healthcare directive, and so that talks about, like, if I'm in a terminal condition or a permanent unconscious condition, here's my express written wishes. It does only cover certain circumstances, so the more you can talk about it and have these conversations, the better. DNRs, life-sustaining treatment, these are all sensitive topics. One thing attorneys don't typically do, but is an important medical document, is a pulse form, which is kind of talking about DNRs and things like that. That's something you would do with your primary
DNR,
care.
do not resuscitate.
Yes,
right?
correct. Yeah, thank you. But that's something that you would do with your primary care doctor, and they don't like to do those until you're older, but that is something that's important as well in that overall conversation. Though another one that's a big one is, what are your thoughts on burial, cremation?
Right.
Do you want a service? Do you not? A new trend is no obituary. But I wouldn't know what my parents want, or my husband, until I sit down and actually talk to them about those things. And it's not always a great idea to wait until you're on your, end of life and your family's in the process of grieving. One thing you have to remember is a lot of funeral homes and stuff, they're in the business of selling products. So we want people thinking clear-mindedly about what their wishes are so that your loved ones can fulfill those. We all vary on what's important to us or not. So.
I mentioned this to you earlier, but I heard someone talk about, good estate planning as a love letter to your children and to your posterity. And one thing that I've noticed as people, one of the big drivers to get people to do these things is often that they experience it with somebody in the upper generation, right? They say, well, I went through this with my parents, and my goodness, that was so difficult, it was so hard, I'm never making my kids go through that. And so they're motivated to get organized.
Yes.
Dean and I, my dad, we have these conversations almost weekly because of the business.
Yeah.
Right? What would happen to the business if something happened to him? What's our plan? If something happened to me, what's his plan? And it's deepened our relationship. And I think finding ways to deepen your relationship with those that you care about is an opportunity with these estate plans.
Yeah.
So.
I agree.
Well, if you're looking to write a love letter, so to say, to your posterity, get in touch with Nicole, and if there's anything we can help with, don't hesitate to reach out.